You know that feeling, right? You look over at your plant and something's just off. The leaves are kind of droopy, maybe a little yellow, and you can feel the soil is still damp from yesterday. So what's your first instinct? It's to grab the watering can. It just feels like the right thing to do. But what if I told you that very instinct might be exactly what's causing the problem?
So let's really unpack this, because this idea, it's at the heart of pretty much everything we're going to cover. It's kind of surprising, but it's true. Your good intentions, all that care you're giving, might be backfiring. So in this explainer, we're going to decode what your plant is actually trying to tell you, and why caring less is very often the real secret to success.
First up, we have to talk about the #1 culprit for struggling houseplants, the overwatering paradox. It is by far the most common mistake new plant owners make, and it's because the whole thing feels completely backwards.
Okay, let's get into the science here for a second, because it's actually fascinating. We all tend to think of roots as just little straws, right? Their only job is to suck up water, but they also have to breathe. Healthy soil is filled with all these tiny little air pockets, and that's where roots get their oxygen. So when you water too often, you're not just giving your plant a drink, you're filling up all those air pockets and, well, you're basically drowning the roots.
And this is where that paradox really kicks in. So, the constant moisture damages the roots, and those damaged roots can't absorb water properly anymore. And what happens? The plant starts to look thirsty and droopy. So you see that, and what do? You add more water, thinking you're helping. But what you're really doing is speeding up this whole deadly cycle.
So how can you even tell if this is what's happening? Well, you've got to look underground. Healthy roots, they should be firm to the touch and kind of a white or light tan color. But if you check and see roots that are brown or even black, and they feel all soft and mushy, that is a dead giveaway for root rot. It's the hidden damage that explains why the leaves up top are looking so sad.
And this, right here, this is the real heart of the issue. Overwatering isn't about how much water you give the plant at one time. Honestly, you could totally drench your plant and it would probably be fine, as long as the soil gets a chance to dry out later. The real killer is the frequency. It's about keeping that soil constantly wet, so the roots never get that crucial dry period they need to breathe. Okay, let's move on to the second critical factor, and this is one that gets overlooked all the time. Light. You know, if overwatering is the symptom, a lack of light is very often the actual root cause.
Here's a really simple way to think about it. Just imagine that water is the fuel for your plant. It's what powers its growth, its daily functions. It's absolutely essential. No question about it.
But here's the kicker. Light is the engine that actually uses that fuel through photosynthesis. So if your plant is sitting in a dark corner, its engine is basically turned off. And all that fuel, the water, it just sits in the soil totally unused, which leads you right back to the root rot we were just talking about.
And believe me, your plant will tell you when its engine isn't running. You'll start to see things like long, thin, kind of leggy stems as it physically stretches toward a window. Or maybe the new leaves it puts out are way smaller than the old ones. Sometimes the leaves will even turn a pale, washed-out yellow. If you see these signs, the problem probably isn't water. It's a lack of energy. So let's say we've got the watering down and we've got the right amount of light. There's still one more huge piece of the puzzle. The very foundation your plant lives in. It's soil.
The kind of soil you use can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. Good soil is light and airy, and it lets all that excess water drain away quickly, letting the air get back in. But poor, dense soil does the exact opposite. It just turns into this heavy, waterlogged sponge, creating those overwatering conditions even if you're trying to be careful.
And here's a little insider tip for you. You know that super compact soil your plant came in from the store? Well, that stuff is designed to hold moisture for a long time while it's sitting on a shelf. It is not designed for a healthy long-term life in your home. It's probably one of the biggest hidden traps for new plant owners. Okay, so you get the problems now. But how do you actually become a plant detective? How do you learn to read the signs your plant is giving you instead of just, guessing? All right, this right here is the single most important habit you can possibly develop. Seriously. Before you even think about watering, just push your finger down into the soil, maybe an inch or two. If you feel any moisture at all, just put the watering can down. Walk away. It's that simple. It forces you to respond to what the plant actually needs, not what a schedule tells you to do. Your plant's leaves are basically a diagnostic chart, so take a look at this. If the leaves are yellow and soft or mushy, that almost always means too much water. If they're pale and thin, it's probably not getting enough light. and only when they're actually dry and crispy should you suspect it needs more water. The key takeaway here is that not every problem has the same solution.
All right, so you've played detective, you've diagnosed the issue. Now what? Let's walk through the simple, practical steps you can take to get your plant back on the road to recovery.
First things first, stop watering. Just let everything dry out. Then do a quick check of the basics. Does your pot actually have drainage holes at the bottom? Can you move it to a brighter spot? And hey, if you think the soil is the problem, don't be afraid to repot it with some fresh, good draining soil. For really bad cases of root rot, you can even take it out and trim away any of those dark, mushy roots. Now, this part is so important. After you've done all that, you have to be patient. Recovery doesn't happen overnight. Your job is to create the right conditions and then just step back. You have to resist that urge to constantly mess with it and fix it.
And that really brings us full circle, back to the core philosophy of good plant care. It's not about constant action and intervention. It's about providing a good, balanced environment, and then having the patience to let the plant do its thing.
So the next time you look at your plants, I want you to stop asking, does this need water? Instead, ask yourself this, what is my plant trying to tell me? Because once you learn to actually read the signs, you stop being a caretaker who's just following a bunch of rules, and you become an observer who really understands their plant's needs. And trust me, that changes everything.